So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained in me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had spent in doing it. And again, all was vanity and a chasing after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun.
Very good. Numbers 24 to 27. Then Jesus told his disciples, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world, but forfeit their life? Or what will they gain in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what has been done." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You can find your seats. Well, our final truth that we're dealing with in this series was originally penned in 1908 by a gentleman of the name of Grantland Rice. He was the United States' first true full-time, well-recognized sports writer. His words were then repeated by Carl Yastrzemski at his induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Since then, they have been repeated time and again by consoling parents and coaches. You know what those words are? It's not whether you win or lose, but how you play the game. How you play the game is what really matters. Actually, the entire quotation is far more powerful than that little brief summation. Here's what Rice originally wrote, and I think it has much more grace to it. He said, "For when the great scorer comes to mark against your name, he writes not that you won or lost, but how you played the game." Now that one has a little bit more moral muscle to it, doesn't it? The one great scorer, of course, refers to God. The game is life, and the mark against your name refers to how God and really other people also will judge you at the end of your life. Rice was saying that how we conduct ourselves here on planet Earth, not only in areas of sports, but also in business and friendship and marriage, this is how we will truly be judged, how the great God will evaluate our lives. And yet we all know, don't we, how incredibly easy it is to get caught up in the game of life and forget the very reason that we're playing, that we're on the ball field, so to speak. That was the conclusion of the author of Ecclesiastes, a king of Israel, simply identified as the teacher. The teacher. The teacher in this book is old and is looking back on his life and evaluating how his life went. He says that when he was younger, whatever his eyes desired, he let them have. And yet he concludes that all of this was vanity, or chasing after the wind. All of his wealth was meaningless and brought him in the end no satisfaction. Then the teacher says that he turned to the pursuit of experiences, boasting that whatever his heart desired, he also gave it in that category. He created a bucket list of things that he wanted to do, to travel the world, to see the pyramids, and so on and so forth. And one by one, he crossed everything off of his list. And yet, he says, in the end, this too was vanity, nothing but chasing after the wind. Finally, in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 12, he turns to the pursuit of wisdom, and we think, aha, wisdom, now he's on to something more substantial here. And yet after filling his mind even with the best of human knowledge and sage advice, he notes that the same fate befalls the foolish person as befalls the wise person. All of this, he also says, is vanity. There's nothing under the sun that brings the teacher satisfaction. All of life, he says, is meaningless. Yeah, well, if you haven't picked it up by now, Ecclesiastes is kind of a depressing little book, not a very optimistic book that way. But it is included in the canon for a reason. It's a corrective. It's a corrective, a warning to people of all times that winning, at least as the world defines winning, isn't everything. That wealth and so forth isn't all that it's cracked up to be. That experience, even as good as having good experiences can be, still leave us wanting. We can have all of these, says Ecclesiastes, but as the rock band U2 says, we still haven't found what we're looking for. Yet the teacher does have one conclusion that brings him consolation and satisfaction in his book. In chapter 4, he observes one solitary individual who has no children, no siblings, but who toils all day and night, never satisfied with what he has. And that person never stops to ask, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? All of this is vanity, says the teacher. But then he concludes this on a hopeful note in his book. 2, he says, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up the other. But woe to the one who is alone and falls and has no one there to pick him or her up. Life is better with 2, says Ecclesiastes. It's better to have friends. It's better to have relationships in one's life. We have much to learn on this count. You and I work so hard, and yet we have fewer and fewer friends, don't we, and family to enjoy the results of our work with. We're overstressed and we're overworked, and yet we're more and more isolated from genuine human contact in our country. We have larger homes but smaller families. We have bigger paychecks but smaller hearts. We have more social media, and yet we have less of a social life. And so we suffer from heart attacks and ulcers on the one hand, and depression and anxiety on the other hand, and our misplaced priorities get us coming and going, don't they? The lesson is clear here. People must come before possessions or positions. People before possessions or positions. 2 are better than 1. People are more important than things. It is better to have the memory of one good marriage than the memories of 7 exciting flings. J. Paul Getty, the founder of Getty Oil, was worth $2 billion when he died in 1976. Now, try to translate $2 billion, into current dollars. I didn't take the time to do that, but I'm sure it's $5 or $6 billion at least. He also married and divorced 5 times, and despite his immense wealth, at one point he commented that in all of his misery, he would trade it all of that money, $5-6 billion, he would have traded it all for one happy marriage. In that moment of clarity, I think Getty was probably closer to God's wisdom than he even knew. Jesus expressed it perfectly. What will it profit a person if they gain the whole world, and yet if they lose their own life? Or what will they give, he says, in return for the life? Indeed, what will it profit us if we gain the whole world, but forfeit the most important thing in life? We need to ask ourselves, I believe, that question on a regular basis. What good will it do us if we have the corner office, but if we don't really and truly know and love our children and our families? What good will it do to have the biggest house on the block, the nicest car on the road, or the busiest calendar of all of our friends, but have no one to share our life with? If I had a nickel for every divorcee who told me, you know, the more successful my spouse became, the less I liked them. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that, I want to tell you, I'd be a rich man, friends. All of us are in danger of gaining the world, but losing our souls. So then the question is, how do we keep our souls? And Jesus lays it out right at the beginning of our gospel lesson. If any of you want to become my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, come and follow me. We keep our souls by losing them for Jesus' sake. By not centering our lives around me and my needs, by not letting our eyes and our hearts have whatever it is that they want, all of the goodies and the cookies that are floating around in our society. By denying ourselves, by limiting our wants, by living for others as well as for ourselves, by serving others as well as meeting our own needs. That is the key to true happiness in life. Now, of course, I know I'm not telling you anything that you haven't heard 1,000 times. This is another one of those pastoral platitudes that we probably all have heard. This isn't moral rocket science, is it here? We all know that we are more satisfied if we break out of the orbit of ourselves and serve others. Our best moments are indeed always when we lose ourselves in service to others. I remember the very first time that my son Benjamin was old enough to be a leader in Vacation Bible School. I think it was 6th grade usually is where they can be a leader, a junior helper basically in Vacation Bible School. At our Vacation Bible Schools back then, we did the same basic practice that we do here, which is to provide some sort of an incentive for the kids if they reach a given goal. And that incentive is usually to throw something at all of the leaders in the group. Some sort of a pie of some sort. Well, that particular year, our theme was the Big Apple, New York City. And so the reward that year, the kids raised $600 for a homeless shelter in New York City, which is awfully darn good and rewarding enough as it was. But their bonus reward was that they got to throw applesauce pies at all of the leaders of Vacation Bible School. And since Ben, again, was a leader that year, both of us put on our garbage bags with the holes cut in the top and sides for the arm to make it a little bit less unpleasant. And the kids let the applesauce fly. And when you do this, a couple of you probably have had this experience, the applesauce just got everywhere. I mean, it gets in your hair, it gets up your nose, it gets in your ear. Your ear is really a troublesome place to have applesauce, It even, you're wearing sandals, it even gets between your toes. I mean, you're just covered in applesauce. But the truth of the matter is that the kids love it, and really and truly the adults love it almost as much as the kids do. It's just a great, fun culmination to a fantastic week. And so Ben and I, 6th grade Ben and I are walking back to the office just soaked, in applesauce. And I turned to him and I said, Ben, I want you to know, you can't pay people enough money to love you this way. I could be wrong, but I think he got it. I think he got the gist of what I meant. True satisfaction in life comes not from material things, but it comes from serving the Lord as we serve other people. That's when we experience true love, true joy, true satisfaction in our life, is when we have expended ourselves, when we put ourselves out, invested ourselves into somebody else, and have seen and experienced that reward in the life of the other person. It isn't whether we win or lose the game, but it's how we play the game that matters. So how are you playing your game? Are you satisfied with your priorities? Or are you denying yourself and serving others. Or think about the question from the opposite end. Begin with the ending, as somebody once said. If you were to die today, would you be happy with the obituary that other people write for you about your life? You know, most of us, when we're dead and gone, most of us will have a pastor like me who will come to the home of our families and will sit down with all of them and will say what I say, which is, so tell me about so-and-so. Tell me about Ted or Bernadette or Sue or Lauren. Tell me about that person. Give me a couple adjectives that describe that person. Tell me the stories that are characteristic of their life. Tell me what they're like. And then I, bring a pad of paper and I write all of this stuff down like a mad dog. And then I go, back to the office and I sit down and I try and write that person's eulogy. But really, here's a clue about what our job is we're really not writing the eulogy. We're really just listening for the eulogy. You see, because each of us is in the process of writing, in fact, our own eulogy. It's already written. Pastors just have to figure out what it is. You see, we write our eulogy day in and day out with our words and especially with our actions. Once I sat down with a family in New Jersey, and when I asked the son to tell me about his father, his reflections came like this. He said, well, he said, my dad taught me the value of $1. And I said, really? Tell me more about that. So he told me a story about his dad, about how his dad had taught him the value of $1, how financial management and so forth was an important thing that had been passed down from father to the son. I said, that's great. Tell me something else about your dad. He couldn't tell me one other story about his life with his dad. That's what he remembered. He taught him the value of $1. Friends, I want to tell you, I just about wept for that son and for that father. That was, in that son's mind at least, the sum of the wisdom that was passed down through the generations, the value of $1. So how's your eulogy go? Do you like the sermon that you're preaching with your words and your actions? Or are there some elements to your eulogy that you'd like to add that maybe you haven't stressed enough in your life? Thanks be to God, it is never, ever too late to add another chapter in a person's life. It is never too late to show the world what it is that we really and truly do want to value, what it is that we really and truly do want to leave as our legacy. It is never too late to show that we really do know how to play the game well. Thanks be to God. It's not too late. Now this weekend, of course, we honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Those who have literally lost their lives in order that you and I might live. And we rightfully honor these war dead as heroes. But the truth of the matter is that every one of us, whether we serve in the military or not, is called to be a hero. To lose our lives in service for others, for our families, for our friends, for our co-workers, for our fellow church members, for the larger world around us. Each and every one of us has a calling to do something significant, to do something sacrificial with our lives. That special needs child, that aging parent that we're caring for, that co-worker who has such incredible potential but who really needs somebody to mentor them. These, dear friends, are our battlefields. And the true enemy isn't the other person. The true enemy is our own laziness, isn't it? The true enemy is our own lethargy. is those things that hold us back, our selfishness. That's the enemy in the battle that we fight in our lives. The hours, though, that we spend investing our lives, our hearts, our dreams, our love, our attention, our care, those hours may not seem that significant when we are doing them, but these are the building blocks of greatness. This is the foundation of eternity. Someday, whether we're there to hear it in person or not, but someday, those others will rise up and will say that we were their heroes, that we saved their lives, that we made a difference for them, and that they went on to do great things because of the sacrifice that we made in our own lives. May it be so. We'll pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.